You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have a guest here with me today to chat about a fun topic that, first of all, I'm not that familiar with, and second of all, that I get questions about a lot. So I think it will be a very interesting chat today. So I'm going to turn it over to her so she can introduce herself and let you know where you can find her online.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jenny Zakrzewski, and I am from Starseed Academy. And it has been my honor to really guide awakening souls through their spiritual journey as they're going through, their ascension and the symptoms and coming into their gifts. And my specialties right now are really helping people to discover and master their soul gifts. And I have some really beautiful programs to help people to learn to speak the language of the clairs and to channel through clean and ethical channeling. And then the other side of my business is all about helping people to step into their, new earth leader blueprint by becoming that Starseed CEO, not just running a business, but really creating their own spiritual empire that supports them and is a real beautiful example to others of what is possible. And you can find me as Starseed Academy over on Instagram. Look for the blue check because, as we know, there can be a lot of different copycats. And then also on YouTube, I have a really big YouTube channel with hundreds and hundreds of videos, so much value over there, all about starseeds, all about spiritual awakening, the dimensions, like all kinds of really, really interesting topics.
Well, I am excited to chat about all of this because Starseeds, not something I'm that familiar with and get questions about a lot. And I also know that you have worked with people of all ages, and I get that question a lot about kids, and I don't have kids myself. And that comes up all the time of how our generation, these maybe spiritual beliefs or powers that we had when we were little, we kind of were taught to suppress. And people are trying to not do that now with their kids. So I get that question that comes up a lot of like, how can I introduce this to my family? How can I like develop and nurture these things that my kids seem to have? So I'm excited to go over all of this with you.
Yes, amazing.
So how did you even get started? What has your spiritual journey been like?
So, my spiritual journey, I mean, speaking of kids, like it really did begin. I was so young, and I remember my gifts being really turned on. And when I say gifts, I mean specifically the clairs. So, for anybody who maybe isn't familiar with that, I'll just quickly say it's clairvoyance. These are French words. Clairvoyance means clear seeing, and that's in your third eye chakra. There is clairsentience, which is clear feeling, and that is in a lot of the time the heart chakra, the palm chakras, and many people can experience it in their solar plexus, kind of that gut feeling as well, when you're feeling energy. Clairaudience is clear hearing, and that happens in the ear chakras. We have chakras above both of our ears on either side. They're actually like a burgundy maroon in color. Nobody really talks about these chakras, but they're there, I promise you. There's one above each ear. And then the final clair is claircognizance, and that's the big one, especially when it comes to channeling. That's the crown chakra. It means clear knowing, and that's where people are receiving downloads, using telepathy, and truly communicating with spirit, whether that's through mediumship, like speaking with past loved ones, or whether that's speaking with higher dimensional beings, galactic, angelic, and so forth. And so as a kid, I had these clairs, very specifically clairsentience and clairaudience, so feeling a lot and hearing a lot. There was no origins for in my reality. Like I would go to bed at night and I would hear music playing and there was no source. Sometimes it was a beat and sometimes it was this like heavenly music. I started to be able to hear, and I mean like truly hear it in the room with me, right? Not in my mind, like actually be tuning in with, my clairaudient antennas being so sensitive that they were picking up other worlds and other dimensions. And that might sound wild and out there, but it's really not if you think about how dogs can hear things that we can't hear. Truly, if we only base our perception of reality on what we can see and touch and hear, we're limiting ourselves from the truth because science has proven that we can't even see the color spectrum that exists. We see so little. Our eyes are so not sensitive, like they're so limited, and our hearing is the same. So when you have these psychic abilities, you have something that's heightened. And and it was really like overwhelming, I would say, as a child. I didn't know what it was, and it could be scary at times because it's so strong to feel a spirit in the room with you or to hear. And on top of that, I was raised in like a very religious family. And so I know a lot of people that are listening to this that are, kind of moving into more of a spiritual timeline versus religious. They know that that can be very traumatizing. So I really did experience a lot of religious trauma, through people believing that everything I was experiencing was just evil because there was no other concept for it at the time, and so that makes it really difficult. So I really understand what children are going through. Now, I do think that we're a lot more open now to it, but not everybody. There's still really like there's still a lot of religious trauma and programming that does happen to children nowadays as well, or just parents that are just too afraid or unaccepting. And unfortunately for me, that was my experience. And so that's why I really wanted to kind of start working with kids. And then that just continued to develop. And then when I was, I think, 25 years old, someone handed me the book The Secret, which was like revolutionary back then. It had just come out, and no one was talking about anything like this. And The Secret is all about you are the creator of your reality. And as soon as I understood that, it like rang so true through my body, and it shifted me out of victim mentality. And victim mentality is like a sleeping pill. If you keep taking that pill, you will never change your life. You will never create the reality that you're looking for. You'll never get it together. That's what I tell a lot of my clients is we've got to really eradicate any of those final vestiges of that patterning of victim mentality, because it keeps you under lock and key, and you're so powerful. You're so like your power is so unlimited when you allow it to be. And so once I understood The Secret, it really helped me to move away from a lot of my religious family and past, and started remembering these gifts from my childhood, started talking to my spirit guides, started asking them out loud, are you there? Who are you? What are you? And it just all blew up from there. I felt a very strong nudge to start a YouTube channel, and I was so afraid, but it was a soul nudge, which means it kept coming back and back and back, and it had a deep feeling to it. And I resisted that for about a year. I was terrified to come out of the spiritual closet, or the psychic closet, I guess. And then when I did, it was like beautiful. All of these people, my community that I didn't know was even out there, started, messaging me and watching my videos and asking for more, and, asking for, well, can you do, can you help me talk to my guides? Can you help me do what you do? And that is the beginning of Starseed Academy. And I started realizing people want to know, not just to give them a reading, but to teach them how to do it themselves. And that was the beginnings of my signature program, Psychic Light, which has become so huge. So I've been on a definite, like, I feel like a lot of us, on the awakening path have been through a lot of dark nights of the soul. I've overcome so much darkness to be in the place that I'm at. So I really don't take it for granted. And it is my honor to now help people, through that same, whether it's children or adults, through that same path.
Oh, I love that your story is so interesting. You touched on so many things that I think other people are experiencing or have experienced that led them to this podcast and all of this sort of information. There is a whole generation of us, I think, that have went through some similar religious traumas and kind of suppressed a lot of what might have been our natural abilities. And I really wonder where so many more of us would be if that hadn't have happened.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. I actually typed that sentence out to a parent that I was signing up to work with. I was doing a private mentorship with them and their child, and I literally typed that into an email yesterday. Can you imagine where we'd be if we had this? Like, who would I be? Like, it's so hard to even imagine because it was so different for me.
Yeah, it was I was somewhere in the middle where like we were semi-religious, the Christians who only go to church on Christmas and Easter, that was us. And my mom was much more open to things because I would always tell my parents that I had a friend that was a little girl that would come visit me through my closet only at night and she just wanted to play. And my mom's like, yeah, that's a ghost. Like there was no like, oh, it's just your imagination, your imaginary friend. She's like, nope, you have a ghost.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, either ghost or spirit guide, depending on how
Yeah.
open you were to tune into that, but definitely something. Yeah.
So at least, like my mom was open to that, but I know a lot of people would not experience the same thing. And I know that a lot of times when that happens, we do tell our kids that's your imaginary friend. And then like if they keep going with that, we send them to a psychologist. And
Oh,
I
yes.
feel like so terrible when that happens because I'm like, maybe kids need that outlet and maybe it is imaginary, but maybe also they are tapping into or trying to express like words and to something that makes sense to their parents about these things that they're experiencing that their parents were told are not real.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. And it happens to adults too. Like a lot of the time when adults go through a spiritual awakening, they start to experience all kinds of symptoms. Like the dark night of the soul is a really tough one. And doctors again will just, well, you're depressed or you're manic or this and put them on all this medication. And it's a similar thing where people just want to um have terms and labels that make sense in the Western world, I guess, for things, and they can't allow that to play out and see where it would go without all of that medications and doctors and everything. So I've seen it happen to children, I've seen it happen to adults, and it is unfortunately the way our society is built, but I hope that that's changing.
Me too. Had I was talking to a guest like a few months ago, and I figured out like during that chat that I think that my Claire is smell. And I've been trying to be like much more open to that because it's been years of me being like, I can smell things that other people swear are not there. It's like so sensitive. I'm like, maybe I just have a very sensitive sense of smell. But I'm like, no, now that I'm like more open to it, it's just like every day there's something new. And I'm like, okay, I just needed to be aware and accept that this was happening.
Oh, that is so interesting. I really have seen a lot of people have experiences where they smell perfume of their maybe a loved one that has passed, or cigar smoke from their grandfather, or roses, or something like that from a goddess or somebody, trying to work with them. And I personally, that's one of the clairs that I really haven't tapped into. It's, it hasn't come through for me as one of my main ones. I just think it's so interesting when people can smell or even taste. Sometimes you can taste as well. Yeah, it's very, very specific, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, they're definitely connected. I have a very specific sense of taste as well. I'm like really super picky about things because I think I can taste more than like most people. But yeah, those two are definitely connected. So yeah, it's very interesting of seeing how that unfolds once I kind of acknowledged it and was more accepting of it, and then tried to see where that's like fitting into my day to day, just seeing how it comes up like more often than I thought it was because I was just ignoring so many signs before.
Yep.
And I bet that is sort of the way that people find you and come to you as well, that you talked about the soul nudge, that they are just experiencing these same things over and over until they're finally like, I need guidance.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple that I hear over and over again. One of the really interesting signs that, your gifts are trying to come online and you're being called into your what I call your earth mission, or your purpose for being here on this planet, is you will experience like between sleep and wake, like as you're falling asleep or maybe as you're waking up, but in that in between mode, you will hear your first name called out in the room that you're in. Like, so just this happened to me early on in my journey as well. So just out of nowhere, I would hear a female voice go, Jenny. And I would be like, whoa, like, who is that? What's happening? And I didn't know at the time it was one of my spirit guides. And it kept happening because it was, I want to work with you. I'm trying to get your attention. It's time for you to shift. Like I was really at a fork in the road with my path. And it was really time for me to kind of shift more into like spiritual work. I was in the music industry at the time as a singer, and it was really like just not my highest path, and it was really being pulling me towards this more spiritual work. And I remember all of those kinds of signs happening, visions and dreams, lucid dreaming, visions of past lives, like seeing things out of the corner of your eye a lot, orbs of light, all of these things starting to come online is such a big sign that you're meant for spiritual work, and you're meant to specifically use your gifts while you're here to be of service.
And speaking of all of those, different signs and things, I know that part of your approach is to still be very grounded, because I know that that's idea of like this woo woo kind of turns people off, even if they are like experiencing some things. So how do you remain a little more grounded and express your knowledge to like your clients and the people that want to, work with you and learn from you and watch your YouTube videos? How is it that you're able to communicate this information without them just immediately clicking off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that for me, I've kept it so grounded, I've kept it so humble, which is really important. Um, I had a Kundalini awakening early on. I think it was probably like 2012 when it happened. And a Kundalini awakening is when you have like a connection to God source happen kind of out of nowhere, and it feels like electric energy running through your body, and then you connect to God source, and you in that moment you feel what it feels like to be that being, right? And I'll just say this might sound a little crazy too, but I'll just say this is like I tell people too, like everyone's going to wake up one day as God source again. Like we all come from there. And we all kind of filter down to have these individuated experiences, but we're all going to make our way back there. But you can, through meditations and through what's called a Kundalini awakening, which is something really cool to research too, for anybody that doesn't know what that is, you can really connect to the God consciousness. And in that moment, you become the all. And when you become everything, I just remember in that moment being complete in awe and just saying things like, oh my God, like I am this person and I am that person and I am this and I am everything. Like I am the trees, I am the, like, it was just so, it's hard to put into words. It was so wild. It was such a humbling moment for me. And going forward from that, I knew every single soul had a piece of the puzzle. We all have a piece of the larger picture of what the truth is. And so it really helped me to know that I don't have all the answers. And if I can help people, amazing. I'm happy to be a part of that, part of their journey. But I'm so open to other people's opinions and ideas. And I really try to stay open in my mind and flexible, because as soon as you start to think you know it all or your way is the only way, you close up. You close up your heart, you close up your mind, and you're going to miss out on so much beauty. So I think part of me staying grounded is staying like really humble and like having the attitude that we're all figuring it out together. And then, another thing that people say is like, and that's the authenticity that really comes through, is like, I'm not playing a role, I'm not playing a game. It's just me, just a person who's open and willing to explain what they've gone through so far, and help people to learn, to come up to where I'm at in certain areas, but I'm still learning as well. But when it comes to like, like speaking about weird things like star seeds, galactic visitors, abductions, that's a real triggering thing for people to hear about, or even really complicated things like crystalline upgrades, and simplifying all of this for people. Well, I really believe that the best teachers that we've ever had, the flex is to simplify everything as much as possible. Like if you look how Buddha or Siddhartha describe things, or even Jesus, how they like broke things down for people. They brought it right down to simplification. And and I've noticed in the spiritual community, unfortunately, a lot of people get into like an egoic language where they intentionally try to complicate things. I call it garbledy-gook. Like they're talking about like, it just is like you have to read the sentence 5 times and it makes absolutely no sense. And they're just adding all of this stuff in there. And that is somebody that is, in their ego when they're trying to teach, making things complicated, and maybe doesn't understand what their own teachings are well enough to simplify it quite yet. And so really it's all about, I keep things as grounded as I can and as simple as I can. And that's what attracts people to me. I'm not throwing out, like the false matrix system is hijacked and we're being pulled into the black hole phantom, like all these things that you read online is like that. You're not going to hear those words come out of my mouth. I'm just going to keep it so real for you. And I'm going to explain it to you how it makes sense to me. And I just have had such success in my big courses where I'm actually teaching people very complicated things because I do that, because I break it down into processes, steps that you take, what to do if this happens, how to do that. And it's not complicated, and it's just not coming from this airy fairy egoic place, it's very grounded.
I absolutely appreciate that approach. And I know that most of the listeners do as well, because that's what my intention with this podcast and how it has been from the beginning is just breaking it down into simplest terms, because there's no sense in trying to make everything sound more complicated. I think that sometimes people do that. I was taught this in law school that the more, words that you're putting in, the more you look like you're trying to fill a page count and sound smarter than you are. And if you can really defend your point and you know what you're talking about, less words are better. And I'm like, I agree. I agree with this sentiment.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And it also has to do with people just being out of balance between their feminine and their masculine. If somebody is like really, really anchored into their feminine only, they tend to be a little less grounded. And that happens, right? Like finding balance between our two essences of divine masculine and divine feminine is pretty much a lifelong journey. And other than shadow work and internal healing of childhood and past lives, that's one of the main things to focus on, I think, is balancing the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah, it is a lifelong journey. I know for me, that I pretty much like never balance. I like go back and forth depending on what the situation is. I definitely lean more masculine, but I try, and I know how important that is. But yeah, I don't think it's something that you're ever going to master. It just changes by the day.
It does. It does. It's just like, trying to learn how to be more present. It's something that you're just always working on. You just know that it's always going to be there. But I think what you just said, that you lean a little more into the masculine, I do too, quite strongly. And I think that those people tend to be a little more grounded and practical, and that's probably too a part of it. But I am then working on being more feminine, which is all about surrender, trusting in my path, surrendering to what comes into my day, not being in resistance and not trying to control things, and really like believing in divine orchestration of each moment.
Yeah, that's definitely what I struggle with. And when I'm trying to work on things, that is top of the list, because I am absolutely logical, science-based. I trust nothing except myself. Like I'm so controlling. So maybe more masculine than I thought. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely me
know
too. So
I know the importance of like working on all of those other things. That's definitely my shadow work. So I know that you have a lot going on with your own like teachings and helping other people, but in terms of the things that you do for yourself, whether that's like your spiritual journey, your self-care, what is your daily life sort of looking like right now?
oh, that is such a good question. Out of all of my interviews, no one's ever asked me that.
It's my favorite
So that's
question.
great. I love having a new question. Okay, so I would say that I multiple times a day will do what I call a sacred space. So, and it really clears the energy in you, in your aura, and in your mind, body, spirit, like fully all that you are, clears you. And it realigns you back to, your highest self frequency, highest timeline, that higher vibe of love and oneness. And it's also a very protective thing to do as well. So what that looks like, a sacred space, is I'll sit quietly. I did it before this call. I do it before every session. And I also just do it throughout the day to bring myself back into my body. So, because, a lot of us tend to kind of float up out of our bodies throughout the day, and actually intuition happens inside the body. Psychic gifts happen inside the body. It's actually physical. So you want to be in your body if you want to be receiving the signs and the signals and the navigation from spirit. You've got to be in your body. So this is how I do that. I will close my eyes and I will call in on my left-hand side. I call in Archangel Michael. He's a divine protector angel and he works with blue light, and I can feel him move in. And then on my right-hand side, I call in Archangel Raphael, and he is a divine healing angel. He works with green light. In front of me, I call in Archangel Haniel. It's a divine feminine angel. She works with the frequency of unconditional love, and it's this pink light. And then behind me, just to close up, because I'm surrounding myself all four directions, behind me, I call in my highest human self. And then I ask them to surround me with their love and their healing and their support, their wisdom, their protection. And you can feel these different colors that they work with. I work a lot with colors. coming into the body and clearing, the pink light of love, lifting up your frequency, that green healing, coming in, deep cellular level healing. A lot of the times from my higher self, it's like silver light, which is courage and bravery, or rainbow light, which is the activated rainbow warrior. And that is very invigorating. And then a blue bubble of protection around you from Archangel Michael, which acts like a filter, and it filters out anything that's not for your highest good. So, nothing can connect with you or engage with you if it's not for your highest good in any kind of realm. And then the final thing is connecting to God's source up above me. So some people like the word universe, God, source. It doesn't matter whatever term you use. I actually recommend that you come up with like a cute little nickname for what you believe the creator to be, so that you can have a little bit of a more personal connection than just the title God or source. So for me, I call source Baba, B-A-B-A, and that means either grandmother spirit or grandfather spirit. And so I picture white light from Baba coming straight down through my crown chakra. And I say, anchor me in divine truth, anchor me in divine timing and orchestration. Thank you. And so everything I just described sounds like a big thing, but it actually takes less than 2 minutes to do. And I'm just like calling everybody in around me and then above, making that connection. And then I just move on with my day. But I'll do that like at least 5 times a day.
I'm glad you said 2 minutes, because that was what I was going to ask, was how long does that take? But I think it's sort of if anybody else has like a similar daily practice, the more that you do it and are in tune with it, the quicker that becomes. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and if you're an empath and you're really sensitive to energy, and you just like go to the grocery store and then come home, you've come home with all kinds of residual energy in your aura. You can't help but be open a lot of the time, especially as an empath. We soak everything up, and you'll start to feel tired, you'll start to feel drained throughout the day. And then when I start to feel that way, I'm like, whoa, what have I taken on? Let me clear myself by doing that. Let me realign to my highest truth. And it's just such a beautiful difference. You can feel it. And it's a spiritual hygiene, I guess, energetic hygiene.
I think that will be helpful for a lot of listeners, because I do have a lot of empaths that have asked me what do I do, because it's too overwhelming to leave my house.
Yeah, or like if you're an energy healer, like I do energy healing readings for people, like if you're in someone's energy, it's a good thing to do as well, because it clears you of their energy, your client. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what, I was going to ask you earlier, because you brought it up and I forgot to follow up with the question. But for those that are not familiar, you quickly mentioned Starseed and aliens and universe. So I want to come back to that for anybody that doesn't know. What does the term Starseed even mean?
Oh, that's such a good question too.
I know it's a long answer.
It's actually this, surprisingly, it's not. So a star seed is a soul that has had lifetimes off world, right? So you're in a lifetime right now on Earth, obviously. But if you believe, as I do, that the soul is eternal and it has many lifetimes, then it just means that you've had lifetimes off world, off Earth. And I'll be honest, I've never met a soul that hasn't. I've never met a soul that's just only Earth lifetimes, like ever. There's
Really?
always something if you go back, you know what I mean? So either
Mhm.
something can be recent, they've recently been in the Pleiades, which I definitely notice a lot of people that are here as volunteers were very recently just in the Pleiadian system in some way. But I've never, no matter how like, I don't know, like muggle the person is, like, non-spiritual, not into any magic, not into, I still, if I do a reading for them, will see something back in their Akash. So I believe that star seeds are everyone. And I think it's just a fun term that humans came up with. And I love it. But I would say like an awakened star seed, that's a little different. That's someone that remembers. That's someone that remembers some of these lifetimes. They're really, really having memories, or they're dreaming about these lifetimes because the memories are trying to poke through, because there's something from those lives that either needs attention or healing, or maybe there was a gift, a beautiful soul gift in that life that you're meant to use now. But for whatever of the multiple reasons, awakened star seeds start to have memories of lifetimes in these weird galactic experiences, these worlds. And that's a really hard thing to understand when it's first happening to you, and it sounds crazy, but I mean, if your soul has hundreds, maybe even thousands of lifetimes, is it really so crazy to think some of them were not on Earth? Like, of course they weren't. right? Our souls are curious. They probably want to try out all kinds of different lifetimes.
It's a fascinating concept to me because I am in this like space of I have no idea what I believe. I have no idea like my thoughts on what happens after we die, where we came from before. Like there's so many like different things out there that I can't. I don't know. I'm constantly learning and adapting. I'm going to keep my mind open, but I just have no idea. But the concept of starseeds is really interesting to me, especially when I read sci-fi, because when those authors come up with like a bunch of, otherworldly, I'm like, did this come to you in a dream? Did you have a past life experiencing all of these things to be able to write all of this sci-fi? I wonder every time.
I do too, and I remember seeing the movie Avatar and being like, that is more than just someone making that up. Like when
Right?
Avatar first came out, and then I did this like astral journey with my membership where we went to Inner Earth, and it looked so much like that. I was like, whoa! I wonder if this person that made Avatar was actually channeling information about this world. It was just crazy.
I think that every time when I'm just like watching anything sci-fi reading, I'm like, man, you are really good at this. And it makes me wonder if this like came to you from memories or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the activated starseed, the one that starts to remember, they start to also feel this feeling. And so maybe, some of the listeners will see themselves in this. Not only do you start to feel like maybe Earth isn't your home and you don't really resonate with humanity, like they are just out there to you. And Earth is beautiful and you love Gaia, but it just doesn't feel like home. And you start to have all of these other memories coming up from these other lifetimes. You'll also notice this feeling inside, this like quite strong feeling, this urge that you are meant here to be of service. And I see it all the time in people like, I know I'm here for a reason. I'm supposed to be doing something. I can't remember what it is, but it's so strong, it's making them anxious. And a lot of the times you'll feel it in the solar plexus, which is at the top of your stomach, and it feels like energy pushing outwards, like we need to go, we need to do this, we're supposed to be helping, where I have a mission, I have a reason, and they're a little frantic about like, how can I remember? And so, it's a very beautiful and fulfilling work to be able to help someone remember not only those past lives, but why they're here and what gifts they're supposed to be helping humanity with, and why they chose to come. And that's another characteristic of the awakened starseed is we are volunteers. Like we weren't reincarnating because of a karmic loop. We volunteered to be here now at this very specific time because Gaia, our planet, is moving through a pathway of ascension. And this is actually like a scientific thing that people can research, and it's called the precession cycle, where our solar system, including our sun, everything, moves through this cycle of like 12,000 years of ascension followed by 12,000 years of descension. And it has to do with the way that our solar system moves through. We go through a time of light when we're moving through the photon belt of light at Alcyone, which is a star in the Pleiades. And then we move through a time of darkness. And that's when we experience our dark ages. And then we move back into that photon belt of light and we experience like very like advanced technologies and people coming together in unity and oneness and finding a way to be in working with nature instead of against it. And all of these things is a golden era. And golden eras look like Lemuria, Avalon. There's been a bunch of different ones on Earth when we're in that golden time. And it's the highest frequencies. The Earth is much warmer at those times because higher frequencies are hotter. Because the energies move more quickly and they create a lot more friction of the faster vibration. So it's like tropical, warm times on the Earth. And then as we move away from that, because Gaia is on a cycle that can't be stopped. She's a school, right? We're not just going to get into a golden era and stay there. We slowly start to descend. And last time it was Lemuria, descend down to Atlantis, then descending further into Egypt, ancient Egypt, and then descending further into like the dark ages of medieval times and witch hunts and all these things. And now we're coming back up and we're starting to rise back up again into the beginnings, very beginning stages of another golden era. And the signs of that are all around us. The additional solar flares, which has been proven, solar flares are the number one way that DNA evolves. So every time we get hit with massive solar flares, we're experiencing this DNA evolution into these higher versions of ourselves, not just us, nature, animals, everything. So it's solar flares, it's things like the purge, which is the biggest ascension symptom you'll ever see. The collective is definitely purging, and we have been massively since 2020, purging all of the corruption, and everything's coming to light, and everybody's purging their wounds, and it feels like chaos, but it's a time of great cleansing of the darker, lower energies on the scale of frequency, things below neutral. So yeah, these awakened star seeds, they're going to feel all of this urgency, and they're going to have these incredible gifts. They're going to be having these crazy dreams. It might already be having memories of these lifetimes. And a lot of these are signs it's time to go. Like, it's time to step into your mission. It's time to get activated, come online with your gifts again, and be a part of the ground crew, really, that's serving humanity. As we move back into a golden era, we need a lot of gentle, gradual help doing that, so it's not so shocking for everybody.
See, that's all speaking my language of my more masculine side, where it like matches the science and
Yeah.
what is quantifiable and observable, like on Earth and in history. I love that stuff. It's just, I am such a nerd for all of that information and being able to like see that and see like the results. And I know that's like my very empirical, scientific, masculine side coming out, but I love that stuff. So absolutely
Love
speaking
how you
language
can
with
like
all that.
connect everything to it. Even like, I know that this is a triggering thing, but even like climate change, like, well, when the earth is in a higher frequency, it's warmer, like higher. I don't know if you've ever like done an energy healing and you start to sweat like crazy, or if you've ever tried like channeling or, doing things like that. You get so hot when you're in those higher frequencies, or even just a visitation from an angelic or a higher being, you will be sweating buckets. It is a very hot energy, and we are moving into higher and higher frequencies, and we can see that through solar flares, and we can see that reflected in the Schumann resonance chart. Gaia's frequency is rising, and she's taking everybody with her. All the children, the humans, the animal kingdom, the nature kingdom, everybody's going with her. So it's going to get warmer and warmer and warmer.
It makes sense to me. Well, Jenny, we covered so many great topics today. I just want to say thank you for sharing all of your information and giving people so many things to think about and to further research. I know that a lot of people are going to have like even more follow-up questions after this episode. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Oh, no problem. And to anybody that does have follow-up questions, or maybe thinks that they are an inactivated starseed, please just feel so free to DM me. Like, I am very open to conversation. Please don't be intimidated. Come on over to Instagram. That's where I'm the easiest to get the attention of. Come on over there and just send me a DM, and I'd love to chat with you about, any questions you have really about what we talked about.
Thank you. And listeners, as always, I will have everything linked in the show notes over at witchwednesdays.com so you can check that out. And that is everything that I have for you this week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. And you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com. You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical.